Fluent speakers are not special humans. They simply develop certain behavior and mindset that help them continue longer than most people. After teaching Mandarin for a while and researching what makes some learners successful, I noticed a pattern. The students who become conversational are usually not the most talented, but students who become fluent in Mandarin always share a few very specific characteristics that most struggling learners never develop. So in today's video, I want to show you the biggest differences between students who successfully become conversational in Mandarin and students who stay stuck for years despite studying. Because if you can develop those behaviors yourself, your chance of becoming fluent in Mandarin increase dramatically. Hello, my name is Jenny. I am a Mandarin coach. I help Mandarin beginners who stuck with tones and pronunciation finally start speaking Mandarin confidently. Over the past year, I have worked with students who started from zero and helped them reach their first 5-minute Mandarin conversation in about 3 months without drowning in hundreds of characters, difficult grammar rules, or endless memorization. So the first characteristic they share is that they all start speaking earlier. Fluent speakers usually start speaking much earlier than average learner. A lot of people stay stuck in what I call passive learning mode. Watching video, learning grammar, collecting vocabulary, studying characters, watching another video, saving another resource. But they never actually speak the language out loud. And the dangerous thing is, passive learning feels productive because you are still doing something. But speaking is completely different skill from memorizing information. It is like watching fitness video versus actually exercising. You can watch workout video for 6 months, but your body only change when you train physically. Mandarin speaking is similar. Some people study Mandarin for years but still struggle to speaking naturally. Why? Because they spend most of their time consuming the language instead of producing it. But the students who become conversational usually start practicing output early. Even if their sentences are simple, even if their grammar is incomplete, even if they only know basic vocabulary. Because they understand something important. You do not become fluent by waiting until you feel ready. You become fluent through speaking. Many students delay speaking for too long because they are scared of mistake, or they think, I will speak later when I'm more ready. But if you keeping delaying speaking, the gap between what you know and what you can actually say become much bigger and bigger. You might understand a lot of vocabulary, you might recognizing those characters, you might even study like a university student. But when it comes to speaking, you still sound like a complete beginner. And that gap can feel emotionally uncomfortable. Some students start feeling embarrassed or ashamed because they think, I have studied for so long, why can't I speak properly yet? And that's exactly why speaking early is so important. You need to train your speaking while you're learning, not after you finish learning. So open your mouth and start speaking from day 1. Characteristic number 2, fluent speakers are willing to sound bad at first. A lot of beginners secretly want to sound good before they start speaking. But the problem is, speaking is a physical skill. Your mouth needs training, your brain needs training, your tongue needs training. The training only happens when you actually open your mouth and speak, not thinking about speaking. And without training, you will continue to sound unnatural. In fact, every student sounds bad first. I see this especially with Mandarin tone. Many beginners are afraid of getting tones wrong because they feel embarrassed. But fluent speakers understand that. Being bad at the beginning is normal. Think about babies learning their first language. Do babies sound perfect? No. They sound terrible at first. They can't even say a full complete sentence. But nobody expects perfection from them. So they improve through repetition and usage. Language learning works the same way. The students who improve the fastest are usually the ones willing to sound awkward for a while. And ironically, Those students often become the best speaker later because they gave themselves permission to practice imperfectly. When people first start learning Mandarin, many beginners are not sure whether their tone and pronunciation are actually correct. So I offer a free 30-minute Mandarin pronunciation and tone diagnosis session. During the session, I will identify your main pronunciation and tone problem and show you exactly what needs to improve. For those who struggle with Mandarin pronunciation and tone, I also create a free book called Why You Struggle with Mandarin Pronunciation and Tone. Inside, I break down the 10 most common mistakes beginners make, so you can quickly understand what's holding you back. You can find the link for both book and the diagnosis section in the description below. So characteristic number 3, fluent speakers repeat way more than most students. This is probably one of the most underrated characteristics of fluent speakers. They repeat things far more than average learner. Most beginner think if I understand it once, I learn it. But understanding is not the same as automatic speaking. You can understand a sentence perfectly, but still freeze when you're trying to say it yourself. Because speaking is not just knowledge, it's a skill. And like every other skill, it requires automation. And automation comes from repetition. This is why I always tell my students to shadow words and sentences repeatedly. Not once, not twice, it's literally as many times as possible. Sometimes students think repetition is boring, but repetition is literally how fluency is built. Think about musicians. Imagine a pianist learning a difficult song. Do they play it once and magically become good? No. They repeat the same section over and over and over again until the movement becomes automatic. Language works the same. You are training your mouth like learning an instrument. So fluent speakers are not necessarily learning more information than everyone else. Sometimes they are simply repeating the basic much more deeply. And honestly, a lot of beginners underestimate how much repetition fluent speakers actually do. For example, one of my early students, Billy, loved shadowing words. On weekend, he would sometimes spend an hour, even more, purely shadowing sound, focus on tones and pronunciation. And he did that consistently for almost half a year to develop a native-like Mandarin pronunciation and tones. Another student, Lisa, would repeat each word and sentence more than 20 times, sometimes over 30 and 40 times before submitting her homework to me. Their goal is not just understand pronunciation and tone intellectually. Their goal is for the mouth to produce words automatically without thinking. Characteristic number 4, they focus on communication and expressing themselves. Another reason fluent speakers improve faster is because they're focusing on using the language to communicate, not just studying it. Instead of waiting until their Mandarin is perfect, they try to express ideas, ask questions, respond, and interact with real people as early as possible. For example, my student Billy would take every opportunity to speak with his Chinese colleague at work. Even though each interaction was short, around 3 to 5 minutes, he would still try to express himself using words and sentences he knew. Over time, those small moments of communication built his confidence, and he gradually started speaking more and more naturally. Another student, Lisa, lived in the countryside in Finland without Chinese community around her. So she often found herself thinking about how to say her thoughts and ideas in Mandarin throughout the day. Then during the coaching session, she would speak as much as she could, even if her sentences are broken, mixed with English, or missing words. But she focused on expressing herself and communicating, not just being perfect. Ultimately, language is a communication tool, not a school subject. And the more you use Mandarin to communicate real thoughts and emotion, the faster your brain started to treat it as something natural, instead of something you only recognize in the textbook. By the way, if you like to watch both of my students' progress, you can check the video here and here. Characteristic number 5, Fluent speakers enjoy the process. People who only focus on being fluent often burn out quickly. They put their attention on the end goal, and every practice session starts to feel like pressure, like they are constantly behind or not good enough yet. Successful learners are different. They don't just focus on the destination. They find enjoyment in the progress itself. For example, student Billy genuinely enjoy having short conversation with native speaker, even if they are simple and imperfect. They literally enjoy the experience of trying to communicate in real time. Student Lisa also found enjoyment in refining her pronunciation during practice. Instead of seeing repetition as boring, she treated it like a way to slowly shape her Mandarin sound, almost like tuning an instrument. Others still get excited when they finally pronounce a tone correctly after multiple attempts, or when they manage to say a full sentence smoothly without stopping. Over time, the practice itself becomes satisfying, not just the result. And this is extremely important because enjoyment creates sustainability. So when you enjoy the process, consistency becomes much easier, which leads us to the next characteristic. Characteristic number 6, fluent speakers stay constant. This is probably the biggest long-term differences. Fluent speakers usually succeed not because they are disciplined, but also because they actually enjoy the process, as we mentioned earlier. They don't rely on motivation to keep going. And honestly, motivation is unreliable. Someday you feel excited to study, someday you don't want to do anything at all. And this is completely normal. The problem is that many learners only study when they feel motivated. But fluent speakers are different. They build systems and habits that keep them going even with motivation disappears. This is why some busy adults can still become surprisingly successful language learners. They don't study for hours when they feel inspired. Instead, they build small, consistent routines, maybe just 20 minutes a day, but they stick to it. And that consistency is far more powerful than occasional intense study sessions, especially for Mandarin pronunciation and speaking. Because your brain improves through repeated exposure over time, not from one long study session once a week. This is why I designed my program around manageable daily practice. Because when consistency becomes easier and even enjoyable, fluency stops feeling something you are chasing, and it starts becoming a natural outcome instead. Another characteristic fluent speakers have is that they know their why. This is another characteristic I noticed in fluent speakers, and this one might be the most important of all. The students who eventually become fluent in Mandarin usually have a very clear and deep understanding of why they are learning the language and why it matters in their life. Because if Mandarin doesn't feel important to you, everything else will always take priority over it. You will study when it's convenient and drop it when life gets busy. But when you truly understand your why and commit it to it, everything changes. Maybe it's because you dream about living in China, study or working there, or building stronger relationship with people around you. That clarity changed everything. Because difficult moments will happen, and then they will always happen in language learning journey. Because learning language is not about memorizing vocabulary. It also comes with frustration, embarrassment, confusion, slow progress, and self-doubt. Even fluent speakers went through this stage as well. So when those difficult moments come, you don't immediately interpret them as, I can't do this. Instead, you think it as, this is part of the journey, I will figure this out. And that mindset is what keeps you going long enough to eventually become fluent in Mandarin. So overall, I honestly believe fluency is much less about talent than most people think. The students who succeed are usually the ones who speak earlier, are willing to sound bad at the beginning, repeat more than most people do, enjoy the process, stay consistent, and clearly know the reason why. So, if you struggle with Mandarin right now, don't ask yourself, am I talented enough to learn this language? A better question to ask yourself is this: am I developing the same characteristic that fluent speakers have? So I'd like to hear from you. Which characteristic do you feel you're currently missing the most? And which one do you want to develop first after watching today's video? So leave a comment and let me know. So thank you so much for watching today's video, and I will see you next one.